On this Saturday night, some relief for Yellowknife evacuees. The re-entry plan for residents ready to return home.
Once Wednesday comes, start your journey back.
As firefighters prepare for a major wind event to threaten their progress. Remembering Jimmy Buffett. The tributes pouring in for the late Margaritaville singer. Pride celebrations and concerns.
I stay hopeful, but you also have to be realistic that there are very real dangers.
The call for shows of support as annual parades and events in Alberta take place amid increased tensions. Displaced but determined. Ukrainian students head back to school.
Slava Ukraini!
As the war continues, what the fall season will bring for the country's children.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Neetu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. After more than 2 weeks of anxious waiting, Yellowknife residents have finally gotten the message they've been looking for. Starting this Wednesday, some 20,000 evacuees scattered across multiple provinces will be able to return home, as crews have managed to push back wildfires impacting the capital of the Northwest Territories. It's a big relief for many, but officials are warning things could still change as weather continues to fuel the more than 200 wildfires burning in the territory. Mackenzie Gray has our top story tonight.
It's clarity many from the Northwest Territories have been waiting for.
Wednesday, September 6th at noon is our official general public welcome home.
Ahead of Yellowknife's 20,000 citizens being able to head home, essential workers will return starting Monday to make sure key services are up and running, but operating at full capacity could take some time.
Really urging people to stay where you are, where there's full services available, supports are available, and once Wednesday comes, start your journey back up.
The town has essentially been closed since August 16th, when residents of the territorial capital and surrounding communities were told to evacuate. At the time, the fire was set to hit Yellowknife days later, but fortunately for residents like Bill Braden, the flames were held back.
Just having that return date when the gates are going to go open and we can go back, that's a great relief.
Brady and his wife Val have driven to Banff along with their daughters and grandkids, a group of 10 in total who've chosen to take a positive approach.
Okay, let's make the best of this. We're calling it an evacuation. We're very, very fortunate to have family and friends who can help us out.
Once he gets home, Braden is looking forward to checking on his garden and making sure his cabin's okay.
The other thing we're looking forward to, hopefully, is doing some berry picking, which is a great northern pastime at this time of year.
The situation across Great Slave Lake and Hay River is more precarious, with strong winds continuing to challenge firefighters who've been able to hold back the flames just 1.5 kilometers from the center of town.
Every time the fire worked to make an advance, we were able to pound it back with our aircraft, which we're finally able to fly as much as we wanted them to under better visibility.
Firefighters and aircraft should get some assistance tomorrow, Neetu, as 15 millimeters of rain is forecasted to hit Hay River.
All right, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa tonight. Thanks, Mackenzie. In British Columbia, officials say there are many challenges ahead for some of the communities affected by the Bush Creek East wildfire, which is still burning in the province's Shuswap region.
The devastation is, I just can't believe what's out there, how hot this fire ran and how big the track of this fire is. We're planning on this being a 3 to 5 year process.
The fire has not grown for several days now, but still spans across an estimated 430 square kilometers. Plans are in the works to allow people into the fire area to see their properties before evacuation orders are lifted. More than 180 wildfires are still burning out of control in the province, with 13 of them being considered of note. Some good news, though, further south, as a spell of good weather has allowed officials to rescind several evacuation orders near Kelowna. Cleanup is underway in Hong Kong and parts of southern China after Typhoon Saola made landfall overnight. Fierce winds and heavy rain left a path of destruction in Hong Kong, with fallen trees, damaged cars, and localized flooding scattered across one of Asia's top financial hubs. In southeastern China, nearly 900,000 people were moved to safety ahead of the storm. However, several still needed rescuing after Saola made landfall. A second, less powerful typhoon is now forecast to make landfall landfall over southeastern Taiwan tomorrow. In the U.S., President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden are in Florida today to assess the damage from Hurricane Idalia. The pair met with Florida residents impacted by Idalia and was briefed on recovery efforts in the state. In a political twist, Joe Biden and Republican Governor Ron DeSantis will not meet to discuss disaster response plans, a stark contrast from last year when the two met in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. Biden also released a statement regarding the death of legendary singer and songwriter Jimmy Buffett, saying he was a poet of paradise. Buffett died Friday night at the age of 76. His rum-soaked songs led to a near cult-like following, scoring more than a dozen Billboard singles, a Broadway musical, and a net worth of $1 billion. As Reggie Cecchini reports, Jimmy Buffett lived what he sang about, a beach bum lifestyle that paid off.
It was his signature song about a signature cocktail best enjoyed on the beach in the sun that elevated Jimmy Buffett to icon status. His yacht rock sound helped to counter the so-called yuppie culture of the 70s. But it was 1977's Margaritaville that gave the idea of what the low-key loafer life felt like and would become the key ingredient to a lifestyle far from it.
I mean, I've had a wonderful, lucky career.
One song kickstarted a billion-dollar empire with more than 24 namesake restaurants around the world, along with casinos, resorts, and hotels. A place for so-called parrot heads to not quite waste away, rather embody the escapist ethos.
It's all about fun and friends.
Born on Christmas Day on the Mississippi coast, James William Buffett made money busking on the streets of New Orleans. He battled a bout of depression until his first hit gave him hope. Only a few years later, he'd find his lost shaker of salt in the Florida Keys.
Strange things happen, but I'm glad, as I said, it's been a pretty good song.
With 43 albums under his floral shirts, it's this tune that was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2016 and led to a campy and panned Broadway show in 2018.
I've always been a fan of musical theater since I would go with my mom.
His health had been failing in recent months, with his family saying he died surrounded by friends, music, and dogs, and that he lived his life like a song till the very last breath. With a legacy that will last long after the party he once said he was the life of. Reggie Cecchini, Global News.
It is Pride weekend in Calgary, but as the LGBTQ2+ community prepares to celebrate, many are doing so under a cloud of anxiety. Police in the province say they've seen an increase in protests and hate-motivated attacks this year, prompting heightened security at several events this weekend. But as Heather Yurex-West explains, organizers say their best protection could be having people turn out in strong numbers.
In this small southern Alberta town, pride has come under attack. Where a rainbow flag once flew stands only a jagged post. Last weekend, someone sawed the pole down.
It is really when you live here, and I could leave and go somewhere else, but my family's here. I do have friends here. This is my community.
A drag show was also targeted. The town's 112-year-old theater forced to close after someone leaked a strong-smelling substance onto the floor.
This increasing aggression needs to be addressed.
Because Fort Macleod is far from alone. Attacks, protests, and rhetoric against the LGBTQ2+ community has been steadily rising globally over the last 2 years. The situation considered so dangerous now in parts of the United States, the Canadian government this week updated its travel advisory, warning members of the queer community against travel to certain states.
We're talking about in Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and other places that have explicitly targeted the LGBT community, and in particular trans and non-binary people.
For me, I stay hopeful, but you also have to be realistic that there are very real dangers.
It's all work to create an air of anxiety in the lead up to Calgary's Pride weekend. The city says security has been bolstered for this year's festival, which includes the annual parade. But organizers say what's most important is that supporters come out in force.
I tell people, I'm like, to allies, Pride is mandatory this year. It's your time to show the support, the allyship that the queer community seeks.
A call to action to show support for a community increasingly feeling under siege. Heather Yurex, West Global News, Calgary.
Deadly clashes in Tel Aviv. Coming up, dozens are injured in chaos between rival Eritrean groups. Plus, how a growing auto theft crisis is driving up insurance rates. More than 100 people were injured after violent clashes in Tel Aviv today between Eritrean government supporters and opponents. Israeli police in riot gear used stun grenades to break up the clashes between hundreds of asylum seekers from the East African nation. The violence occurred near the Eritrean embassy at an event aimed to mark the 30 years of Eritrea's independence from Ethiopia. Human rights groups have condemned the nation's government of being highly repressive. More than 25,000 Eritreans are said to be seeking asylum in Israel. Back in our country, there is a growing auto theft crisis, and that's prompting some insurers to add a hefty surcharge to the most commonly stolen vehicles. Ann Gaviola explains how you can avoid paying more than you need to and what's driving this trend.
The number of vehicle thefts since 2020 has exploded at an alarming rate.
It's a national crisis. Ontario and Quebec are being hit the hardest, largely because of their proximity to the eastern ports.
The Insurance Bureau of Canada tells Global News there was $1 billion worth of losses due to stolen vehicles last year, and that's only counting insured vehicles. $700 million in Ontario alone, and some have gone to extreme lengths to deter thieves. Vehicles became a hot commodity in the early pandemic years when supply chains were snarled and computer chips, a key component in many new makes, were hard to come by. Auto thieves target push-to-start vehicles, which are easier to drive away with. SUVs and pickup trucks are go-tos, usually shipped overseas, sometimes stripped for parts.
This is not a victimless crime. This is organized crime. It's significant. And the problem of funding organized crime and terrorism is really what is very concerning.
Topping the list are the Honda CR-V, Lexus RX, and Ford F-150 series. Comprehensive insurance premiums on these commonly stolen cars soared between 25% and 50% in the past 2 years.
The surcharge can be as much as $500 depending on the vehicle, but there are ways to get around that premium increase by installing an anti-theft device like a steering wheel lock or a tracking device.
Be proactive in terms of avoiding having your car stolen. Keep it parked in a well-lit area. Keep contents outside of your vehicle.
And don't be afraid to switch to another insurance provider if the price is right.
There's only a few insurance companies that are surcharging right now, and so it might be in your best interest to shop around.
Protect your vehicle and your pocketbook. Ann Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Ahead, how artificial intelligence is changing teaching and learning in classrooms. With students across the country back in class or preparing to head back after Labor Day, there's a new challenge facing teachers this year. The rise of artificial intelligence apps like ChatGPT is opening up new avenues for learning and for cheating. Joining us with more on how schools are handling this shift is Karsten Mundell with the University of Alberta. Thank you so much for being here. And I should mention off the top that you are leading a task force at the university that's looking into AI. How are you seeing classes integrating AI into the workflow for both students and teachers?
Yeah, so there's a few examples. It's great to be here chatting with you. A few examples of how our professors are integrating. One of them is in group work, a fairly common assignment or a way of having students work through a problem. And so if normally a group had been 4 individuals, some instructors are now having a group of 3, and ChatGPT becomes the 4th group member. And so as they're working through a problem, they're consulting with each other, but also consulting with ChatGPT and reflecting on ChatGPT's answers, how relevant it might be, and what kind of modifications they might want to make. Another example, a professor colleague of mine is teaching a really large anthropology class and looking at social issues, current issues in anthropology, and the students will be putting some of those issues into ChatGPT and then having a conversation, a form of oral exam with a professor as a way of, again, having them demonstrate critical thinking and their understanding of the course material.
Okay, so it sounds pretty useful in those settings. What kind of concerns, if any, do you have about the use of AI in classrooms, especially around cheating or even effective learning?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that cheating is certainly a concern that lots of folks raise. I'm very confident in the way forward. Our task force is made up not only of experts from across the university, a variety of disciplines, but also of students. And I think together we're really trying to think through how do we navigate this technological change. We've done it before with tools like calculators or applications like Wikipedia. And so I think we are really able to imagine that by making adjustments to our assignments, by making adjustments to how students are able to demonstrate that they've learned the things we're trying to teach. Because I think by and large, the vast majority of our students are not setting out to cheat. And we're still finding our way through what does it mean, this new technology, and what does it mean for learning, and how do we continue to foster things like writing, crucial skills for all of our graduates, high school or university. How do we foster skills like critical thinking? So absolutely excited about the conversations that we continue to have with our schools.
And you mentioned those past disruptors like Wikipedia, and before that there were calculators. How do you think AI's impact on the classroom compares to those, and do you think AI use needs to be monitored or regulated more formally?
I think regulation is really challenging, actually, given where it's at. It is out in the wild at this point. So what we've been really focusing on is AI literacy, and so helping our students understand and faculty and staff how this technology works. Again, U of A has a lot of experts in helping us understand how large language models are built, the sort of underlying math, that this isn't thinking the way which you and I might do as humans, we would think. This is just math. And then talking about sort of social and political and ethical and privacy implications of generative AI. What about intellectual property? What about writing in the style of pick your favorite author? What does that mean? And then what kind of tasks should generative AI be doing? And perhaps what tasks should generative AI not be doing? I think those are the kinds of pieces. And then thinking about how this applies to our learning environments.
Important questions there. We'll continue following your work on this issue. Again, that is Karsten Mundell with the University of Alberta. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, the war disrupts but doesn't destroy back to school for these Ukrainian students. According to UNICEF, more than 1,300 schools in Ukraine have been destroyed since Russia's full-scale invasion began. So with the Day of Knowledge marking the start of Ukraine's new school year, millions of students are once again learning online. But as we reported earlier in the week on Global News, those in Kharkiv can also study in the city's metro system, where underground classrooms have been built. Crystal Gamansing spoke with Kharkiv's mayor about what the fall will bring for the city and the country's children.
Dressed up and eager for school, this level of joy doesn't come often in frontline cities like Kharkiv. Mayor Ihor Terahov rang the school bell deep underground in the metro, signaling the start of the academic year. He tells Global News it's his obligation to give parents and students an in-person learning option, that is as safe as possible.
Yes, it is very difficult actually for children, for the families. This will help them emotionally, to stand with this situation which we now have.
The situation is a war in which children have endured nearly daily rocket and missile strikes and stolen time with the men in their lives who are now on the front lines. But here, a couple of times a week, young students in grades 1 to 3 will get a taste of school life. Timur is excited and talks about his backpack, which has donuts painted on it. He says it's empty, but he'll put stuff in it soon.
Slava Ukraini!
President Volodymyr Zelensky beamed as he chatted with school kids from more than 20 regions across Ukraine and beyond, wishing them a successful school year. He highlighted a newly created Ukrainian educational app. Maria, which translates into dream, allows parents, teachers, and students in Ukraine or living abroad to access lesson plans and share feedback. As the war rages on, he knows it's not possible for all kids to be back in classrooms full-time, but it is the dream. She knows what Zoom is, says this mom. I want her to know what school is, what a desk is. For those in Canada embarking on a new school year, a message from Kharkiv's mayor.
For the children of Canada, that they will have a really great academic year. And I would like to say that thankfully, Canadian children and Ukrainians children and families which are moved to the Canada, they have an opportunity to teaching in the schools, in the safety, in the comfortable conditions.
Something he hopes will again soon be part of life in Kharkiv. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
And that is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada is Tupperville, Nova Scotia. We love seeing your Canada. Please keep emailing your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a great night.